Welcome to NFL Preseason Live Before Lock. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with Matt Gajewski, the preseason pioneer. You can find him on Twitter at Matt. Is it Matt_Gajewski, I believe?
Yeah. Yes,
this show. At Matt_Gajewski. This show is sponsored by Caesars. If you haven't yet seen the Caesars offer, you really need to check it out. It's $50. You just need to bet $50. You're going to get $250 in bonus bets. Those are going to be in $50 increments over the course of 5 weeks. Fantastic deal. If you have sports betting available in your state, but for some reason you have not signed up for Caesars, highly recommend doing so immediately. This offer is only available until September 19th. So you need to take advantage of it while you can. The legal age for gambling in most states is 21 plus. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But we have a 2-game slate here. We've got 25 minutes until lock. So we are going to get right into this, Matt. Are you ready to start just breaking this down position by position, starting at the quarterbacks?
Yeah, I'm ready to get into it. Let's do it for the people.
Yeah, let's do it for the people. Just start with your quarterbacks. And I mean, it's only a 2-game slate. So, if I ask you to rank your top 4, that'll be pretty easy, I would think. But just tell me about the quarterbacks a little bit. And then, do rank your top 3, 5, however many you're interested in playing.
Yeah, this is the most interesting slate I think we've done so far because there's actually some uncertainty in the projections. A lot of that just coming from the coaching staffs not giving us a clear indication how long starters are going to play. Like, for example, Mike Tomlin came out and said the starters are going to play a satisfactory amount, until he is satisfied with whatever they put on the field. Is that a series, 2 series? Is that a full half? I don't know. So there is a lot of uncertainty with the projections tonight specifically, which I think is fun for GPPs. I say that now. We'll see once right. I'm buried at halftime. It won't be so fun. But
yeah,
regardless, that does add Kenny Pickett and Anthony Richardson into the mix. They're not the highest projected quarterbacks on the slate for that reason. But if you do give them a full half, they would immediately shoot to the top. They're both playing tonight. We don't know for how long. So I want to just highlight them first, even though they're not the highest projected. I want to highlight them because they're the most talented and they will be playing with their starters. That means George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Michael Pittman. They're all expected to see the field. We just don't know for how long. If you have an appetite for risk, I would suggest playing those 2, and I'm definitely going to be doing so. Once you get beyond them, you can project playing time a little more reasonably for players like Tanner McKee and Logan Woodside. For Philadelphia, you're not going to see Hurts. They kind of have that backup room solidified, and there's been rumors that Marcus Mariota might even only play a couple series. So Tanner McKee, while not really the most talented, he's probably going to play a half at least tonight, non-mobile, but you can actually guarantee that playing time. Same thing with Woodside, not expected to see a lot of Ritter. Backup situations pretty solidified in Atlanta, which means he should be out there too. Again, not dealing with the most talented signal callers here, but they at least have a little bit more projectability. So that's where I would rank the top 4. And I don't have a strong preference between them. I think that depends on your appetite for risk.
Sorry, can you just repeat those top 4, just the names again?
Yeah, in no particular order. They're Kenny Pickett, Anthony Richardson, Tanner McKee, and Logan Woodside.
Do you anticipate that Anthony Richardson will be running at all tonight, or is that something that quarterbacks don't really do in the preseason?
They don't do it as much. He rushed a couple times in his last appearance. So I do think there's some upside. Like we saw Malik Willis rush only a couple times, would break off a couple long runs. So that's always in play. But otherwise, I'm more interested in him as a passer anyway, just because he'll be throwing to Pittman and Pierce and the actual legitimate receivers in the offense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ocean Grown says that he wants your best 9 quarterbacks. So yeah, if you could just go. Okay. The funny thing is, even on this 2-game slate, you could list 9, at least that have projections here.
There are 9.
That's the beauty of preseason, but we're not going to go 9 deep. We only have another 22 minutes. So we're going to move right along to running backs. Tell me about some of your favorite running backs. Tell me who is playable. How would you rank them, etc.
All right. There's a clear top 4, and that just comes down to Atlanta and Philadelphia are basically using 2 guys apiece. You might see players like Boston Scott and Bijan in cameo appearances, but we're not expecting a ton of snaps from any of the premier runners in either backfield. And we've seen this through 2 games now. Atlanta's very willing to split Carlos Washington, Godwin, and Buike, just almost 50-50. And the same thing with Philadelphia and Trey Sermon and Kennedy Brooks. Sermon's played a little bit more than Brooks, but we're talking about very, very minute differences. I think those are your clear top 4, and I would go to the Atlanta guys first, just because not sure who we see out of that it's really a 4-back veteran tandem ahead of Trey Sermon and Brooks. If you saw Boston Scott, Swift, Rashad Penny, any of them for a number of snaps, that could depress the overall volume for the Philly backs compared to Atlanta. They don't really have a lot of competition. But overall, I see that as a very, very clear tier with those four.
Okay.
And then once you get beyond that, there's like a little GPP tier I think you can dip your toes into. Indy expecting mostly Evan Hull and Jake Funk. Then for Pittsburgh, it would be Greg Bell and Anthony McFarland. But those guys are very clearly behind the top four.
So Deion Jackson not really making your top or even your second tier here with Indy. Somebody was asking about Deion Jackson versus
I have a
Evan
little
Hull
Deion Jackson. He single-digit percentage Deion Jackson tonight.
Okay, so more interested though in Evan Hull and Jake Funk in Indy. Okay, so your top four, you got Carlos Washington, Godwin Igwebuike, Trey Sermon, Kennedy Brooks. Drop down, then you've got Evan Hull, Jake Funk, Greg Bell, Anthony McFarland, and then from there is just nobody who you're playing double digits. Who else are you playing single digits besides Deion Jackson? Anybody else that you're getting any of?
Jason Huntley. That's it.
All right, that's fair. I think that is a good enough response. I guess we do need to, we're being quick, but we kind of need to be. We should probably get all of the positions covered fairly early so people can, get into making their lineups. But I do want to ask this question because somebody asked if you played cash. Zach Jameson asked if you played cash, who would your quarterback be?
It would be McKee. I think just the most projectable playing time. I don't strongly feel that way though. Like I still think it's very close.
Okay.
And so I saw someone mention Sam Ellinger in chat. He would be my fifth quarterback if we went past 5.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else to say about the running back position, or should we move on to wide receiver?
We can go to wideouts.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I said it at the top of the show, guys. If you haven't signed up for Caesars, it's available in your state. Highly recommend signing up for Caesars. You're going to turn $50. If you bet $50, you'll get $250 in bonus bets. Those are going to be in $50 increments. Of course, in most states, you must be 21 plus to play, to gamble. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's move on. Talk about some wide receivers. I'm guessing you're going to have interest in a lot of wide receivers because nobody projects extremely well. It seems like a pretty tight band, several of these receivers, but try to break it down for us. Tell us, try to give us some tiers maybe. Who do you like here?
Yeah, you've got Pittsburgh and Philadelphia standing out. I think Philadelphia is safer. That just comes down to number of players that are actually available for that team. They sort of condensed snaps to Joseph Nada, Devin Allen, and Deion Kane in their most recent game. And I don't really see that changing tonight. They're players that are being evaluated for the back of this roster, whereas you're not going to see Devontae Smith, you're not going to see A.J. Brown. And then some of the players towards the top of that depth chart are actually a little banged up. You saw some injuries in the most recent practices. So Britton Covey, Quez Watkins, Greg Ward, those guys aren't expected to play, which I think will further condense the opportunity here.
It was just pointed out. So Cameron Wolf tweeted out, Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, and Steelers offense warming up. Okay. How does that affect things for you with Pickett? Are you still like, if he's playing 3 series, is that enough that you want to be playing any Pickett or Najee or any other Steelers for that matter?
Probably not. You could play like the receivers maybe, but I don't think it's enough time for Pickett. But, like 3 series of, I don't know, Johnson, maybe that's enough, but I'm going to bring Pickett down right now.
Does it bring Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph into play at all?
Yeah, I think Trubisky mainly with a little bit of the rushing equity, but I think it certainly does. I'll be looking to play a little bit more of them as well.
Okay. Yeah. So Matt is going to be updating his projections here a little bit for the Steelers. That was good that we got that news before the show is out. Bad.
Yeah, we'll see if they get updated. I don't know. I got to fix a crunch I'm playing tonight, so.
Would have been great if they got that news to us half an hour ago. So you could have done before the show, change your projections. Because it seems like that is actionable news. Feels like they could have gotten that to us a little bit earlier.
News. So now I think there's kind of a 3-person tier at the top. Richardson, McKee. Yeah, Woodside, that's got to be the tier now.
Richardson, McKee, Woodside is your top 3 quarterbacks here. I would say Kenny Pickett probably still in play with 3 series. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Because if he scores a touchdown, the way things go on these low scoring slates, that could be enough potentially. Steve McGee sent us a super chat. He said, Matt, favorite for Pittsburgh/Atlanta showdown. I'm guessing he means favorite captain. Is there any captain that stands out to you from Pittsburgh or Atlanta for showdown?
What a timely question, right? When we get this news, that's very good. Yeah, I'd be looking to Godwin Abuike and Carlos in the backfield. Those would be my two favorites overall. But let me pull this up here. The snaps for Pittsburgh were really interesting last game. So I'm pulling up the last game to try to readjust these projections a little bit. They gave Gunnar Olszewski 51 snaps. Nobody else played more than 22. So that's pretty noticeable. And I think he's somebody that's probably going to fly under the radar here once we get to receivers. I don't hate using him as a one-off or just like a random captain if you're playing large field.
Okay. I mean, we're ready to talk about receivers also. But for
Right.
Chad Counts asks, are the Falcons starting defenders playing today?
The Falcons aren't projected to play their starters long if they're playing. Their coach was pretty coy on playing time.
Okay. So we don't know for sure. CEH 1300 asks Brooks or Sermon for the flex.
I would play Sermon if forced to pick one, but it's extremely close.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back to talking about some wide receivers. So again, you started a little bit, but can you give us like tiers of wide receivers here?
Yeah, so the Philly guys are number one tier. You want at least one Philly guy between Nada, Allen, and Kane. I'll probably bump. I love Johnson and Pickens, but that was assuming they were going to play at least a quarter. Now I don't even think they see that. Maybe they do. I mean, there's usually 10 series in a game, 3 series. Give them around a quarter-ish. That's still pretty decent. They don't project quite as well, but I don't think they're as secure. They're probably going to be, once projections are updated, in like the Pittman range, the Alec Pierce range, where you have starters projected around a quarter. Okay. So trying to figure out what to do.
If there's 10 series per game and you had been projected for a quarter, like this is possibly even good news, right? Isn't that like, if they're playing 30% of the game, potentially that's, so there doesn't change a ton in terms of just like percentage of the game you're expecting them to play.
No, that's rough. They usually like 10 and a half, like 10.5 is where you get series per game for these guys.
Okay. Sounds good. Jay sent a super chat. Thoughts on Heineke? I really like him. What's your level of interest in Taylor Heineke tonight?
Well, I wasn't interested until we got this news. Now some of these back-end quarterbacks are getting up there a little bit. Heineke didn't play really at all in the first game, which has me concerned because they kind of treated the second game as their dress rehearsal. So I'm a little worried if Atlanta just treats this as a throwaway game. Do we just see like the entire Logan Woodside experience? But that's not certain. They didn't tell us. So Heineke, I think, for GPPs does make some sense.
Okay. Getting back to wide receivers. So you like those Philadelphia guys. Sounds like you're still willing to play these Pittsburgh guys some, but you have a little bit less interest than you did before we started the show. Who else do you like tonight at wide receiver?
Behind them, I think Josh Ali for Atlanta should be the guy we prioritize there. Snaps went his way. For Indy, they're going to play a lot of guys, but I think you could throw some darts on the starters like we mentioned. If it ends up being like a 2 series for the Indy starters, because again, you could see that Anthony Richardson comes out, drive, touchdown right away, pulls people. Guys that would benefit would be Juwan Winfrey. He played a ton in their last game, Brashad Perriman, Amari Rodgers. But even then, I was still probably trying to target some of the Philly depth, like Jaden Hazelwood behind the top 3 is a guy that stands out. You have, of course, Gunnar Olszewski. He projects a little lower currently, but he's probably going to end up in the top 5 once the projections are fully updated, just siphoning away some of those snaps from Johnson, Pickens, and Allen Robinson. A lot of those will go Olszewski's direction, Calvin Austin's direction, Miles Boykin direction.
Okay. So you are adding Gunnar Olszewski into the top 5 there. Zach was asking, so top 3 wide receivers are Ngata.
They're
Allen.
all Eagles, yeah.
So it's Ngata, Allen, and Deion Kane, not Gunnar Olszewski, though, right?
Yes, that's where I would put it. But I wouldn't play them all together. I would limit that to 2 max.
Okay, but you would play up to 2. Okay.
What a mess we have here.
Yeah, this does seem like quite the mess. We've already dug. I mean, it's only 2 games, so I feel like you've given a good idea of which wide receivers you like. Of course, I guess we need to talk about tight ends. This isn't showdown, so you do need to play a tight end. But actually, before we get there, let's finish out receivers. So your top tier would be Ngata, Allen, Kane. Second tier, Olszewski. You said he's in the top 5. Who else would be considered in that second tier?
Pierce, I think I'd put Josh Ali in there to round out the top 5.
Okay. So we got Pierce, Ali, Ngata, Allen, Kane, and then Olszewski, a bonus 6th.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. So we've
Thank you,
got
Neil.
our.
That's very well put because I'm trying to do a bunch of things. You summed it up very well. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to help out. Hopefully you can get some projections done, update your lineups a little bit, and take down another GPP tonight. That's what we're hoping for. Anthony wants to know, do you like JJ Arteaga-Whiteside?
Yeah, he'd be right behind Josh Ali in the projections for that game. Number 2 receiver I would target in Atlanta.
All right. Sounds good. Let me see. Any Michael Pittman for you tonight?
Yeah, it's increasing too with the Steelers decreasing.
Yeah. So Pittman, Juwan Winfrey projects pretty well for you as well. Trying to see just for people who don't have access to the projections, just making sure I get all the names in there. Still willing to play some Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson. They've lost a little bit of appeal with the news that they're not playing more than 3 series.
Yeah, the way it went for me, I think I'm going to run this most recent crunch. Johnson went down to 24%, Pickens 15, Allen Robinson 4. I need to bring Olszewski up. He's only at 4.2, so this is not going to be my final crunch. But anyway, they were up around like 40%, so they're dropping a fair amount with the Colts guys coming up and the Eagles guys coming up even a little more.
Taylor Logan wants to know any Josh Downs for you.
Little bit, very little bit, yes.
Yeah, he's pretty far down in your projections. Like there are a lot of guys that were sprinkling in. If you're playing like 150, Josh Downs would probably be in that group. But would you play him like if you're playing just 5, 10 lineups and you could get to any Josh Downs?
Yeah, I'd probably put him in like 1 if you're playing 5 or 10.
Okay.
He's in 6% of mine, so very, very small, but.
You ready to talk some tight ends or anything else you want to say about wide receivers?
I'm ready for tight ends.
All right. Well, we got the question from Boss Bra. Freiermuth playing? Yeah, we've got Freiermuth projected is currently our top tight end. Of course, that's before this is my projections have before the news that they're only playing 3 series, but I would imagine Freiermuth is in that bucket of players that are going to play those 3 series. Tell me about your favorite tight ends here. Is there a top tier at all? Is there just a big old mess of big jumble of tight ends? There was
a very clear Freiermuth at the top. I don't believe that's the case anymore. I think John Fitzpatrick's probably close to him now. Atlanta has a bunch of tight ends, but we're not expecting to see a ton of, Jonnu Smith or Kyle Pitts. They only had Fitzpatrick for their most recent game, but he played a lot. From there, I'm going to the Eagles. They have a bunch of pass catching tight ends. Dan Arnold, Tyree Jackson, Grant Calcaterra. They all profile like that. And then Darnell Washington is probably the biggest beneficiary of these limited Pittsburgh starter snaps. Indy's a complete mess. They have 8 tight ends on the roster, and I think 7 of them are going to play tonight. If you're playing one, I would suggest Will Mallory, but I don't feel confident with any Indy tight end. I'm going to try to not play any of them.
That is a lot of tight ends to be played.
They had like 4 dudes injured throughout the week, and they all like returned to practice within the last couple days, except for forget which one. Oh, it's Jelani Woods. He's the only one who's not going to play. So they have like 7 active tight ends. It's insane.
Do you think Jelani Woods is the clear tight end 1 for Indy once the season starts?
No. I think he's the favorite, but I think they rotate a fair amount. And you still probably see like Mo Alley Cox and Granson and some of these guys.
Yeah, it's a mess. Like I've been drafting some Jelani in best ball, but I'm a little bit concerned because of the Mo Alley Cox and Granson. A little bit tough there. If you gave your top 3 tight ends, who do you think you'd go for?
Freiermuth, Fitzpatrick, Darnell, currently.
All right. Anthony asks, who is going to be the lowest owned Eagles tight end for a FanDuel GPP? I mean, it's hard to project ownership. I guess I would probably guess Calcaterra will be the lowest owned.
That's what I would guess too.
Guys, if you have not yet hit the like button, please do hit the like button. Matt working hard for you, redoing all of his stuff on the show, still giving out the goods to you while he's trying to run his own lineups, trying to take down the GPP himself tonight. Infamous
trying
Paco.
Not to get $0 back.
Yeah, that's always a good goal. I think that my first attempt at preseason NFL DFS, I got $0 back because I didn't know what I was doing, and then it went a little bit better for me the next day. Infamous Paco wants to know if you have any interest in Tyree Jackson.
Yes, certainly. I am playing a lot more of I think they're going to spread snaps to Dan Arnold, Tyree Jackson, and Grant Calcaterra. Before I didn't have a lot of interest. Now I'm playing a little bit of all 3.
Calvin Austin or Gunnar Olszewski? Brandon wants to know.
Olszewski.
Yeah, I guess based on your tiers, I could have guessed that. But where's Calvin Austin in here? Yeah, you don't have Calvin Austin.
He
He's
would
not
be
projected
bumped
too far down.
if I had finished the projections in time.
Okay. Um, so typically it sounds like you don't have a ton of opinion on the defenses. You have them all projected the exact same. Do you have any tiebreakers for the defenses tonight?
I think it is very close as usual with defenses. I think the best ones are honestly probably Indy facing mostly Tanner McKee or Pittsburgh facing mostly Woodside. I don't care if I have a bunch of skill positions playing against them. A lot of times it helps you. So I'm not worried about that. I know it's kind of counterintuitive that the quarterbacks I like are playing against the defenses I generally like, but it's a 2-game slate. You don't have a ton of options. I'm spreading evenly, but if you were forced me to pick, I would take the teams playing those bad QBs.
Do you think that tends to be kind of contrarian, at least if you're playing your quarterback against your defense?
I think to some degree, like if you're in cruncher and you don't change that, I think people a lot of times just have an aversion to it overall. But I'm looking at my lineups right now. I have like plenty of lineups where it's just like Colts D, and that's my only Colt in the lineup.
Okay.
Like stuff like that.
Yep. Trouble 5 says Gajewski unreal at preseason. Yes, well that's why you gotta hit the like button for him, because he's working for you guys. Infamous Paco asks, is Bijan at 4 safe to do if Chase and Jefferson are gone? If it's safe, I don't know that I'd call it safe, but I think Bijan is a totally fine pick at 4. Trying to think if we have any other things we need to. I mean, we've talked about every position. Would you play both of the Atlanta running backs in the same lineup? Somebody asked.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I have actually a lot of lineups like that. I had to go and actively bring it down in Cruncher because so many of my lineups, essentially running three running backs, you're going to get some combination of Igwebuike, Sermon, Washington, and Brooks in most of them, which means you're doubling up on one of the teams. So I actively brought that down a little bit, still playing a ton of it, but just to mix and match a little bit and shave off some of that ownership. Because, if Hull or Funk falls in the end zone, or McFarland or whoever it may be, you're probably going to need one of those guys. But overall, Atlanta and Philly still by far the best projections. So I'm going to just eat some double lineups like that.
Anthony has 3 running backs or 4 wide receivers on FanDuel. And is it the same on both sites?
For the most part, yes. This slate, I think you could maybe get in a 4th receiver or something, just because there are a couple really condensed situations. But for the most part, those RBs are going to be where you want to go.
Yeah, that's what we were doing in past weeks. I know you were an advocate for running backs in the flex spot, but this week you think that wide receivers are a little bit more viable. Like you'll have some wide receivers in the flex, you think?
Yes, a few, not a lot. I'm looking through it right now. Very few.
But
normally I have 0, so yeah.
So getting to some is a change.
Yeah, I see a Devin Allen flex right here. Yeah, a couple.
Giano says if Atlanta defense sends them safety blitzes like they did in week 1, they are going to crush. Yeah, you could play. I mean, it's hard to really take a stand on defenses here, but certainly seems viable. Trying to see if we have any other like general strategy. So you are playing defense against opposing quarterback in some. You're generally playing running back in the flex. What other construction? Anybody have any other construction questions or just player questions? McKee with the Eagles wide receiver stack. Wait. Instill asking McKee with Eagles wide receiver stack or Richardson and Pittman stack. What do you think?
I prefer the McKee side.
Any interest in McKenzie? Seems like he is the only one Anthony Richardson doesn't overthrow, Giano says.
Yeah, I think that's the Indy situation has the most receivers active, which is why some of those guys towards the bottom I don't have as much of. But McKenzie's going to play about just as many snaps as maybe a few less than Perriman or Amari Rodgers. No issues with McKenzie, but yeah, that's funny. Richardson overthrows a lot of guys.
Oh, does he? Uh-oh. At least
very erratic. Hopefully he's Josh Allen, and just that comes with schematics and development.
Yep, just needs a little bit more time to develop. Do we have any other final thoughts here? I think that we've asked. William Wester says kickers. Do you have any thoughts on kickers for Showdown? Anybody stand out other than the others? Are you playing kickers on Showdown tonight? What do you think?
Definitely on Showdown. Young Hoku stands out. Only one kicker in Atlanta. Jake Elliott stands out. Only one kicker in Philly. Pittsburgh and Indy both have battles going on.
Maxwell Miller points out you can play an all Pennsylvania lineup. Yeah, that's true. You could play, he says, for the win, all Pennsylvania lineup. seems
OPA.
largely viable, except at running back. Feels like I guess, oh yeah, we do have the Phillies running backs look good. Never mind. Yeah, you could totally do an all PA lineup. I think we made it to intro. Have you got your lineups in, Matt?
Yeah, they're in. I don't feel good about them, but they're in.
All right. Well,
they're not dead.
That's something.
At least I think they're not dead.
Okay. You have live lineups. You're not playing like zeros at any positions. That's all you can really hope for when you're making your lineups on the show. It can be tough here. All right. I think that is going to do it for the show. Taylor Logan says, "You the man, Matt." Yeah, Matt is the man. He's working hard for you here. Hit that like button. Matt, any final words?
Thank you guys for being here. This is day one of our final week of preseason DFS. We have 3 days to go. Let's make the most of it. Play those shutdowns, play all the long slates. But again, thank you guys. Been a blast doing this so far.
I'm not 100%, but I think it's going to be me and Matt both of the next 2 days as well. So looking forward to that. Let's win some money and then have some more money to play on the slates tomorrow and Saturday. That's our goal here. Thank you guys for watching. Again, hit that like button if you haven't done so. And good luck tonight.